All right, today we're stepping into the smoky, kind of melancholic world of one of modern Korean literature's most iconic poems, The Wooden Horse and the Lady by Park In-hwan. This isn't just a poem that tells a story, no. It goes way deeper. It captures the very soul of a generation that felt completely lost and adrift.
Right from the jump, the poem just pulls you in with these opening lines. You feel that atmosphere, right? It's not bright and sunny. It's like we just walked into a dimly lit room and we're overhearing this really heavy conversation about art, about tragedy, and about someone who left in this mysterious way. It is the perfect setup for the beautiful sadness that just soaks this entire poem.
So let's really place ourselves in that scene. It feels incredibly intimate, doesn't it? As if we've just pulled up a chair to this little table in a smoky bar. You can almost feel the air, thick with these big ideas and, an undeniable sense of loss.
And you realize pretty quickly, this is not just some random bar. It's a symbolic space, really. A kind of hideout for escaping a pretty harsh reality. This little room is the starting point for a deep dive into the profound emptiness that haunts the poem's world. A world where it feels like everything important is already gone.
Now, to really get a handle on that feeling of emptiness, we have to zoom out from this intimate little bar and take a look at the world that's raging right outside its doors. And let me tell you, understanding the historical context here, it's not just helpful, it's absolutely essential.
So, you have to remember, this poem was written in the 1950s, right after the Korean War. I mean, we are talking about complete and utter devastation. The cities were rubble, an entire generation was traumatized, and the nation was dealing with this massive physical and psychological crisis. This isn't just background noise, it's literally the air this poem breathes. And all of that devastation, well, this is what it led to. The collective mood of the time, what Koreans call jongso, was one of deep spiritual exhaustion. Hope was lost. The modern city wasn't a beacon of progress, it just felt alienating and hollow. And suddenly, that glass of wine back in the bar, it makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it? It's a desperate search for an exit from a reality that's just unbearable.
So you're an artist. How in the world do you even begin to capture that level of despair? Well, for Park In-hwan and poets like him, the answer was a new artistic language, modernism. In a lot of ways, it was the only language that could really speak for such a broken world.
You see, modernism wasn't just about, painting weird or writing in a new style. It was a whole philosophical shift. It turned its back on those big, optimistic stories, and instead it looked inward. It focused on the individual's fractured experience, their loneliness, and their struggle to find any meaning in a world that seemed to have none left.
And when you put them side by side like this, you can really see just how radical this new approach was. Traditional Korean poetry often celebrated things like harmony with nature, the strength of the community. But for Park In-hwan's generation, writing about harmony would have felt like a lie. Their world was defined by alienation, so they swapped images of nature for the lonely city, and that sense of an enduring spirit for a deep, profound nihilism.
Okay, so with all that history in our back pocket, let's zoom back into the bar and start decoding the really powerful symbols Park In-hwan is using, because for me, this is where the poem's genius just explodes.
First up, Virginia Woolf. Why her? It's not just a cool literary name drop, not at all. She is the embodiment of the tragic artist, a genius plagued by depression who ultimately gave in to her inner darkness. She becomes a symbol for the sorrow that feels baked into life itself. And then there's the wooden horse. A toy horse, right? It should be about childhood, simple dreams, but not here. Here, it's broken, symbolizing how innocence itself was just shattered by a brutal reality.
And it doesn't stop there. The symbols just keep layering on top of each other. Who is the lady? The poem hints that she isn't a real person. She's bigger than that. She's an idea, a symbol for everything beautiful that has been lost forever. Love, beauty, an entire past wiped out by war. And the wine, the night, the wind, these are classic modernist tools, painting this whole atmosphere of escape, of inner darkness, and the relentless, uncaring passage of time.
So when you put all those pieces together, you realize what this poem is really about. It's about absence. The lady is gone, the horse is abandoned, Wolf is dead. The whole emotional world of this poem is defined not by what's there, but by the gaping hole left behind by everything that's missing.
So, that brings us to the big question. Why are we still talking about this poem decades later? What makes it stick? Well, it's because Park In-hwan somehow managed to create this perfect storm of meaning.
He masterfully weaves together the very specific despair of his time and his place with feelings that we can all recognize: the pain of lost love, the loneliness of feeling different, the dread of modern life. And in doing that, he finds this tragic, haunting beauty in the power of art to give a voice to that very despair.
And there's this one line later in the poem that just, wow, it hits you like a ton of bricks. The speaker says life isn't lonely, it's just cheap, vulgar, like a magazine cover. It's such a cynical thing to say, but it's hiding this deep, deep fear. A fear of what? Maybe the fear that underneath that vulgar surface, there's just nothing. And really, that's what the poem leaves us with, right? This huge question. Park In-hwan's poem is one answer, from 1950s Korea. It suggests that sometimes the only honest way to tell the story of an empty world is to meticulously, beautifully just trace the outline of what's missing.